trusted companion.
Welcome back to my channel. My name is Kat, and today we will be going on part 3 of our Twisted Tales journey. They just keep on coming, and they will.
Oh my god, there's a muffin in the distance.
Ooh, there is a muffin. So we have 4 new pieces to review, one of which my lovely cousin took a video of for me because that painting, actually a few paintings of mine, are stuck in his closet in LA. Thanks, Kevin. First one that we're going to be looking at today. Just a little gruesome, this one.
The Maiden with the Rose on Her Forehead is a Portuguese fairy tale by Consigliere Pedroso. This tale begins with a prince and a princess who are close siblings. The brother is drafted for war and leaves his most beloved rose garden to the care of his sister. This is quite a burden indeed, as she spends day and night tending to the roses and missing her brother. And not so mysteriously, she gives birth to a baby girl with a rose on her forehead. Now we can either believe the rose garden fathered this child, or her brother did. It's a choose-your-own adventure, but each option is gross and suspicious. Moving on, she is horrifically ashamed of her daughter, and swears to her that if she ever reveals who she was to anyone, she would kill her. Sweet, I know. Years later, the brother returns, and he's, just hanging out in the schoolyard, handing out cherries to children, like grown men should do, of course. Our little maiden with the rose on her forehead friend refuses to take them. Even though she refused, in the whirlwind of it all, she ends up getting a cherry stuck in her hair. And upon returning home and her mother seeing it, she assumes that her daughter has revealed herself and then violently stabs her with a comb, killing her. And as one does, the sister shoves the body of her child in an iron chest and locks her away. But she doesn't live long after that. She ends up dying of guilt and grief shortly afterwards. So the prince, now alone, decides to take away. And one day he leaves on another hunting trip, leaving his wife every key to the house, but warning her never to open the iron chest, as that's what his sister told him. But his wife and mother-in-law disregard this warning and open the chest anyway, finding a beautiful young maiden happily sewing inside. Jealous, thinking that he's keeping this maiden for his own guilty pleasures, they burn her all over with hot irons about the face and body, and then when he returns, they claim that she is their new slave. Long story short, the prince hears one day the maiden telling her woeful story to, I don't know, some dude, and he's like, whoa, that's like my daughter niece. And so he asks his daughter niece what she thinks should be done to the evil in-laws, and they get burned all over with hot irons, just like they did to the maiden. And the prince and the maiden live happily ever after, and he never marries again because apparently her company is enough, which is gross. The end.
That wasn't safe.
I'm so sorry.
Moving on. Let's see if I can.
Alright, the version we're going to be going over is The Sleeping Beauty in the Wood by Charles Perrault. Originally written in 2 parts, our story begins at the christening of the king and queen's long-awaited baby daughter. A grand celebration indeed. The royal couple invited 7 good fairies to be the godmother of their precious child. These fairies are given a golden plate and presented with cups and utensils encrusted with fine jewels upon their arrival. An elder fairy who was thought to have died long before crashes the party and is furious when she is forgotten and given like regular china and crystal like some sort of peasant. And so she curses the child to die the day she pricks her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel. The court is shocked. But the 7th good fairy has yet to give her gift to the child. She adds to the 6 gifts of beauty, wit, grace, dance, song, and goodness by giving the infant protection. Instead of dying, the girl will fall into a 100-year slumber only to be awakened by the kiss of a prince. After the ceremony, the king ordered all the spinning wheels in the kingdom kingdom to be burned and banished from his land. The princess grows to her 15th birthday, and one day wandering the corridors of the palace alone, she happens upon an old woman spinning away on a spinning wheel. Blah blah, curses fulfilled. You'd think the old fairy was the old woman, but no, she was just an innocent old lady working in the castle and was horrified to see the princess crumble in a death-like slumber. So the good fairy who gave the 7th gift is summoned, and she puts the entire kingdom to sleep until Sleeping Beauty is to awaken. She also creates like a protective forest bramble surrounding the kingdom, so no one can just like sneak in and steal stuff. So 100 years later, a king's son does happen upon it, and he hears a whisper that there's a really hot princess in there, and he's like, hoo hoo hoo! So he doesn't need more convincing, and he succeeds, and he awakens her with a kiss. They are married in the castle chapel later that day. For some reason, he keeps this like on the DL and doesn't tell his own kingdom and like continues to visit her in secret. Anyway, she bears him 2 children, Dawn and Day. Aurore et jour. Problems ensue when the prince ascends the throne, and the secret breaks to his ogress mother, who then kidnaps her new in-laws and orders a chef to cook them for her dinner. The cook refuses and instead serves a lamb, a goat, and a hen in exchange for the princess mother and her children. The ogress queen mother is satisfied at first, but when she discovers the tricks made upon her, she fills a giant tub of vipers to throw her daughter-in-law and grandchildren into. However, the prince arrives just in the nick of time, and the ogress then throws herself into the pit of vipers. They then live happily ever after.
Day. Next, we have the one that I do not have with me, so I will be inserting a picture, which will probably look better than any of the footage I have of the ones that I have here.
The Elf of the Rose by Hans Christian Andersen. So this little doozy starts with another brother and sister pair, except the sister has a lover that she adores. But one day, her wicked brother sends her lover on a perilous journey in order to postpone their engagement. In parting, the girl gives her fiancé a rose, which, unbeknownst to her, has a little elf in it. So while bebopping along his journey and sniffing his rose, remembering his gal, the wicked brother erupts out of the ground and murders his sister's lover and then cuts off his head. He then buries him and then covers it with some leaves. And the little elf was witness to all of this. So the elf follows the wicked brother home in his hat, and upon seeing his sister, the little elf stays by the sister's ear at night and whispers the true story of what happened to her lover in the night. So following the instructions of her kind little elf friend, she goes to the graveside of her beloved and digs up his head and takes it home with her. She plants it in a pot, and from her tears grows jasmine, although I depicted it as roses since it's Elf of the Rose in my painting. I just thought it would look nicer, and I think I was right. Anyways, she spends the rest of her short life weeping at her little potted plant chia pet boyfriend, and she dies a few days later. So her weird, creepy brother takes this plant as the last thing that his sister ever left him, and he puts it by his bedside because it smells real nice and pretty. But little does he know that there's little spirits in those flowers that know what he did. And that elf, he didn't forget either. So our Elf of the Rose is plotting his revenge with this queen bee that he met, and the flower spirits are planning their own revenge and exact it while the evil brother is sleeping. They stab his tongue with poisoned darts in the night. The Elf of the Rose comes the next day in the morning, ready to sting him with a swarm of bees, but finds that he is already dead. The village is baffled at this young man's death and wonders if he was just allergic to jasmine. But the Elf of the Rose does not let this little stinker get off without any trouble on his little record. And so he breaks that pot, and the skull is revealed. And so everyone knows that brother was a murderer. So not very happy, but it ended.
Finally, we have
The Myrtle Tree by Giambattista Basile. So this poor woman who desperately yearns for a child one day gives birth to a stick of myrtle. And, she plants it, of course, and one day a prince sees it and is like, I gotta have that. And so he pays a very handsome price and puts this myrtle tree in his bedroom. Well, little does he know that a beautiful fairy lives inside of this myrtle tree stick, and she takes it upon herself to start visiting him at night. And soon she becomes his most favorite companion, which leads to him no longer needing the services of his regular prostitutes. These ladies are out of work and they're like, we gotta figure out what's going on. So while the prince is away on some sort of hunting trip, business, whatever, they sneak into his room and discover his scandalous fairy lover, and in a fit of jealousy, they brutally take their bare hands and smash her head and body into pieces, leaving only her hands, teeth, blood, and some bones. All but one of the prostitutes participated. The one who refused to took only a single lock of golden hair. So later, they hightail it out of there. And the servant who's supposed to water the Myrtle Tree comes in and is like, oh my god! And so he just buries the fairy remains underneath the Myrtle Tree and hopes for the best. Luckily, the fairy is able to regrow a body from her remains, and when the prince comes home, she tells her of his misfortune and identifies the culprits. The guilty prostitutes are buried in the sewer, while the servant gets to marry the one prostitute who saved a piece of golden hair. The end.
Alrighty, that is going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It means so much to me. That is all the paintings that we are going to go over in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Leave a like and a comment if you did. There will be a makeup tutorial of this look coming out later this week. It took a long time. We will be taking a break from Twisted Tales next week, and there will be some health-related content out next week. About life after a serious concussion, about upcoming scans that I had on my brain, stuff like that. What it's like to live as an opera student, but also with a healing brain, we'll call it. So that'll be coming out soon. Keep tuned for more videos. I appreciate you.